coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody, welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. Yes, we're back after a couple of weeks of the international break. That's done now. We can forget about international stuff, even if we were thinking about international stuff, until the summer. So now it's League and FA Cup and all the rest of the stuff until the end of the season. Plenty of time for us to discuss and more likely worry, fret about Arsenal and what the future may hold for the club. Introductions first. I am Matt H. With me, as usual, is Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello there, Matt, and I'm not sure if it is so great to be back from the international break. I was quite enjoying this one.
I'm trying to keep things light, but yes, I appreciate that a break from Arsenal for a couple of weeks probably wasn't a bad thing, all things considered. Matt V is normally with us, of course. He is unable to be with us this evening. Hopefully we'll have him back next week, so you've just got the pair of us for the moment. Right then, let's get on with it. There's only been the one Arsenal game since we were away, and it was a big one, and it was City yesterday at home. 2 times Arsenal went behind, but on 2 occasions they managed to come back. So there's all sorts about this game that was of interest and stuff we can talk about. But I'm not really sure where to start. 2-2 was the final score, so a point each. Let's start with the team news. Mesut Ozil started. Anything to note about that, or indeed any other aspect of the team news, Pete?
No, well, it was quite nice to see him back, but I'm not sure he's back to his best yet at all. But then again, I'm not sure anyone is. So yeah, I thought it was quite nice to see him back, and hopefully he'll continue to improve, because this wasn't again his greatest game ever, was it?
No, it wasn't. We'll come on to the game in a second, because I just wanted to note something I noted when I was covering this for By the Minute, which I thought was interesting. If you take the last 10 games of the 2 teams combined in all competitions, so the last 5 each, they've only won 4 games, City and Arsenal, and 2 of those, the 4 teams they've beaten between the 4 of them, between the 2 of us, let me get this right, were Borough, Sunderland, Lincoln, and Sutton. So the two teams were not coming into this combined with any great degree of form. The only thing I predicted beforehand was I thought there would be a number of goals, and I was surprisingly correct. Not surprising that bit was right, surprising I was right at all, as my betting account will show.
The surprise team-wise was, I guess, yet again, he played a front 3 that didn't include Giroud, but didn't play Alexis at centre forward, which it just seems strange that he's not going back to that, which was when we were playing our best. And I appreciate Danny Welbeck's back, and that's great, and he is a centre forward, but he does play pretty well on the wing, so it would be nice to maybe give that a go with Alexis through the middle. But there you go.
It's an interesting point. I mean, the lineup on screen had the team in a particular formation. I didn't know if that was the way it was going to stay. But yeah, there's so much merit to the idea of having Sanchez just marauding through the centre. But yeah, that doesn't seem to have happened now for a while. God, there could be all sorts of reasons for that. What we weren't going to see yesterday was Perez or Oxlade-Chamberlain or Ramsey, all of which had injuries of one degree or another.
Yeah. So he pretty much played what he could, really.
I think so. There wasn't a great deal of option there, was there really? Well, let's get into the actual game then, and what a surprise, as we've discussed a number of times on this, within the first, 5 minutes, Arsenal concede a goal. I mean, it's enough to make you tear your hair out. The atmosphere in the ground, as far as I could tell, just was almost resigned after that, but you were there. What was your impression of the goal, and then how the crowd reacted to it?
Well, the goal was... well, it was already coming. It was quite early, but it was already coming.
They did start well, didn't they, just in those first few minutes?
They did start very well, and we started by allowing them to have the run of our back line, as far as I could see, and midfield, and just said, yeah, if you want to stick any balls straight through the middle, that's fine with us. And of course, after a few minutes, they a very good ball from De Bruyne paid off. And Sane got on the end of it and managed to beat Hector Bellerin, who you wonder if he's lost pace for good, or if this is. I mean, he's still fast, isn't he? But I think probably when when he's at his very best, he would have beaten Sane there. But fairly straightforward goal from their point of view, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah. I mean, beautifully finished. So, I mean, I have to make a small confession. Is probably not the right word, but if they're not playing Arsenal, I do enjoy watching City because I like that you never quite know what you're going to get with them, but when they're on form, I think they are really good to watch. And I did worry slightly after those first 5 minutes yesterday that we were going to be on the end of not a thrashing by any means, but an excellent City performance. And I think the way that goal was taken so well had my alarm bells going ever so slightly. And also the defensive lapse. I mean, the problem with someone looking at the Bellerin thing, for example, is really interesting because with everything else that's swirling around the club at the moment, someone just having an off game, it's very easy to start thinking, well, now, are they just had an off game, or are they upset? Are they worried? Are they, are they doing this on purpose? And it's very easy to get into that kind of worry or debate or whatever it might be. So I hope it's just one of these temporary things, perhaps a bit tired, perhaps a bit slow back into the routine or something. Hopefully nothing we have to worry about for a long-term basis, but time will tell. There's a few games left, 10 games or something between now and the end of the season, so there's 10 games in the league, of course, and then a few cup games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But almost from the moment City scored the goal, Arsenal, to my mind at least, were the better team. I thought an excellent sort of 20-30 minutes. It certainly it wasn't what I was expecting to happen, put it that way.
Well, the thing I was going to say earlier on is actually the crowd reacted really well, as far as I can see, to going behind. They really got behind the team, and it seemed like, I don't know whether it's just for the bigger games, in quotes, but I thought the crowd really got behind the team really well for most of the first half, basically, and didn't just disappear at the sight of the Man City goal. And that's one of the things that kept us in it and kept the team going. And we did have a very good period after that game, after that goal, and it did result in a rather nicely taken goal by Walcott.
Yeah, he sort of scuffed it in a little bit, but he did well to be in the right place and maintain sort of that element of calm, if you like, to actually do the job. And certainly, covering the game as I was, by the time you got to that point, my initial sort of concern had ebbed somewhat, although this season it never goes away completely. And I wasn't suggesting that was a turning point, but in my mind I was actually about to type, the crowd of, they're really behind the team at the moment. And before I'd even time to type that, in a little microcosm of the Arsenal season, City had, having done nothing for the previous sort of 20 minutes, had controlled the ball sort of all the way from the kickoff for sort of a minute solid or whatever, and ending with Aguero giving them back the lead just before half-time.
Yeah, which was devastating. It really was. But and having seen it again since, there's a number of people to blame for that, isn't there? Mesut Ozil, I'm afraid, is one of them. I'm not exactly sure what he was up to, giving the ball away twice in quick succession, right just in front of our box, and then Granit Xhaka wandering around like, nothing was really happening. I mean, again, a very nice finish from Aguero. But if it was us, you'd say, well taken goal. But all a bit hopeless. It was a bit ping-pongy, to give them their due. But to not, after having equalised, keeping things tight for at least a few minutes.
Yeah.
90 seconds, was it?
Something, I can't remember exactly, but it's something along those lines, yeah.
It was, no, come on. It's not as if City can just score at will against us. It's not like they've just thought, oh no, they've equalised, we better go and get back in the lead. It was just appalling. So. Yeah,
and the early goal conceded, and then conceding after having got back in, having really, fought to get back into it. Your heart sinks when that happens, and then it both happens in the same half, which is even worse. And it's happening against a team that, whilst obviously slightly suspect at the back, and that's obviously a very relative term in terms of how far up the league they are, can really take you apart if they want, when it all clicks for them at the front. So went into half time with a certain confusion of emotions, if you like. Pleased that we'd scored against City and we got that goal back, but obviously, you want to claw your eyes out, when you then see them go in and get that goal back so quickly. Just after half time there was an interesting moment as well, when, well, it wasn't really a moment in the game as such, but we had to make a substitution at half time. Koscielny off and Gabriel on.
Yes.
Now, given how we've done previously when Koscielny's gone off, that was a worrying moment.
Yeah, and having seen the result of the last time home game where Koscielny left the pitch early, it was fairly worrying to think that we had at least got our one goal. So had it gone 5-1, we were in perfect position to do it. But I think it is actually quite good that even dealing with that, we managed not to throw the game away completely after that. So I think there are some positives to take from this.
Well, definitely, and I was going to say, although, knowing where you sit, you would have had a good view, I think, of almost Gabriel's first involvement was some somewhat casual back and forth with Ospina, I think it was, which very nearly let, I can't remember who it was, but a City player in. It wasn't the best start from Gabriel. But after that, I thought he did rather well, and I believe he had something like 7 or 8 clearances in the second half. So actually, I thought was a positive note.
Yeah, he was. I quite agree. He did. It's the best we've seen of him this season. That's fair enough, isn't it?
I think that's a fair enough assessment. I also wanted to, if we're taking positives where we can, I thought Ospina was very good again as well. Again, I don't know how it comes across when you're in the stadium, but certainly he got down well to a few shots that could have snuck in at corners, had he not been quite as alert as he was.
Yeah, no, I thought he did have a good game, and he's a great goalkeeper to have when you haven't got Petr Cech, and in some ways you wonder whether maybe we might be better with him even when we do have Petr Cech. But he had a great game. Man City probably should have scored more, shouldn't they? I mean, one of the things that struck me was actually, I think Man City must have played pretty badly not to beat us, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was lots about the Arsenal performance to enjoy. If you just take it on its own, if you forget the maelstrom of everything else that's going on in the season, the going behind, the immediate concession after levelling is obviously hugely irritating. But trying to look on the bright side, there was lots of getting into the challenges, getting hold of the ball, good passing. Wasn't massive amounts in the final third, but I thought there seemed to be quite a lot of sort of pressing and whatnot done where necessary. But on flipping that round, you would expect a team like City, who I say on their day I think can be fantastic to watch, to have been almost more threatening than they were. And yes, Ospina did have to make some saves, but City had 14 shots, I think it was, but didn't have that many on target. So yeah.
I think Pep Guardiola would definitely have wanted them to score more than they did. So,
I think that's a fair enough comment. Yeah.
He wouldn't blame the defence, is what I mean.
No, he wouldn't.
The way he does, he would say, "Well, we didn't score enough," and that to some extent was our problem too. But we didn't have as many good chances and shots on goal as they did. So. I thought it was. I think there was a certain determination about us that looked good, and
that's a good word. Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I jumped into you. Were you going to say anything else?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, determination is, I think, the word I was struggling for. This is weird. Sorry, 2 random things. The attendance apparently was 60,001 persons, which quite appeals to me in some weird way. Also, we obviously equalised. We made it 2-2, and for some reason I had in my head that the Mustafi goal was slightly later than the 53rd minute, and I should really know when it was because I was covering it yesterday. We score from a corner, and there's the first thing to note. That's
a shocker, isn't it? And it was a very well taken corner and a very nice. Well, as everyone says, it was zonal marking, wasn't it? So
it was a pretty static looking Man City back line. I mean, the only problem we could have had, ironically, the other way around from when we were playing West Brom, is our players might have got in each other's way rather than which I think is pretty much what the West Brom players nearly had a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was a well taken header, but again, City should be looking to defend that a little better.
Yeah, it was a very nice header though, wasn't it? I mean, the goalkeeper didn't have any chance. You couldn't blame him for that, and he doesn't look great. Is the other thing I noticed. Caballero, wasn't it?
Well,
he had a couple of very hairy moments, which we really should have taken advantage of. But He's not the greatest goalkeeper in the world, is he?
Well, no, and it's interesting. I mean, well, I think there's a couple more points about this particular match, but jumping just if we can, slightly ahead of ourselves, the cup semi-final we've got coming up in a couple of weeks. Obviously the same team. I mean, maybe not the same personnel, but I'm not sure there'll be many differences, to be honest, given that both teams will be, let's be honest, out of the title race. It gives there's a chance there, isn't there, to win this semi-final. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get nearer to it, but the way City played yesterday, whilst there were flashes of what they can do, if the same team turns up at Wembley, there's certainly a chance, should we say, that Arsenal could get past them.
Yeah, I think that's right. It'll be, I suspect, another slugfest in terms of attacking football, and neither team can defend properly, can they? So why bother to try? And I think that it makes for exciting, if rather harea entertainment. So I'm all for it.
I thought it was an entertaining game yesterday. I mean, I know that's not necessarily how I should be approaching it. I should be approaching it with, I don't care if it's the most boring game in the world as long as Arsenal win. Arsenal didn't win, but when I was sort of summing up the game at the end, I thought actually I didn't hate that match. Let's put it that way. And I think had I been neutral, I think pretty enjoyable. A couple of other things I wanted to note, just that were of interest. With about 15 minutes to go, Sky put a little stat up on the screen noting that I assume it's just Premier League games this season, City and Arsenal have between them scored 30 goals in the last 15 minutes. I think City was 16, Arsenal 14. And I made a point of that means that's going to finish 2-2 then, which of course it did. And I mean, joking aside, there did seem to be a certain, I wouldn't say foot off the gas, that would be unfair, but I don't know. Both teams seem more scared of losing than winning, to do a bit of a cliche. Was that an impression you got in the stadium at all?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think. I think again our substitutions didn't help. I think there were times when you just don't need to make the substitutions. And I don't think that helped. But I think both teams kind of went well, which was strange because a draw was really no good for either of them, was it? But
not really, no.
I think, as you say, it was better. I mean, certainly for Arsenal, maybe not so much for Man City. It was a game I think they knew that they couldn't lose. There was a lot of pressure on it, and I think that's probably where the determination that we've talked about maybe came from, was just they really felt they could not lose this, and I think it is a positive thing that they didn't. That they will have drawn some confidence from that, hopefully going forward, and as you say, maybe going into that Cup semi-final, if nothing else.
So yeah, it's an interesting point because in my notes here, I sort of was going to say, was it a point gained? But actually, maybe yesterday wasn't just about points. Maybe it was also about getting a bit of confidence. And whilst it was not a sparkling performance by any means, there was a certain amount of, as you alluded to, sort of backs to the wall determination and some half decent stuff there as well, including some nice moves here and there. And maybe that is more, again, looking on the positive side, maybe that's the kind of thing we should be taking out of it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Man City would have felt worse than we did, other than the fact they were away from home. We were a team struggling with complete lack of confidence, on a very bad run of form. Yeah, okay, they are as well, but not quite as bad as ours. They haven't lost 4 in 5 league games, have they? So, yeah, I think it was some form of positive result to hold them at bay.
It was, and we've got a couple of games coming up which might be more better targets, if you like, for 3 points, which we'll come on to later. Later. I just wanted to mention one thing very quickly. There's something I noticed at least twice yesterday. Now, for all of Sanchez's brilliance when he's really on form, and he was certainly very busy yesterday as well. He didn't quite sparkle perhaps in the ways he has done, but he certainly seemed to be getting involved, and that's a good thing. And that isn't a surprise to us. We're used to that. And we've mentioned this before, I think, or at least I've certainly thought it before. He can be a liability on occasions.
You can.
There were certainly 2 occasions that I noted where, whilst trying to help, his presence was actually a mess. One occasion I think he was perhaps a little unlucky and sort of slipped. But on another occasion he could have just belted it. I mean, all right, I may be simplifying the game a little bit there, but I don't know. I just wonder if that kind of thing is looked at by the managers and coaches. I hope it is. I wondered if it was sort of something you'd spotted.
Certainly, yes. I mean, we've talked about before his habit of giving the ball away, but I think yesterday the difference was that he was doing it in areas of the pitch you really don't want him doing it. I mean, fair enough, giving it away in attacking positions, then he's trying to make something happen. He's in the right area of the pitch to be trying to make things happen and make mistakes, but. Yesterday was in dreadful places. The back heel to Bellerin when Bellerin was running up the field, and he just ended up passing it to Aguero, I think it was, basically, straight into our defence, which ended up with another Ospina save, was horrendous, and it wasn't the first time he'd done it. And this is why another reason I'm just not sure why we're not playing him at centre forward, because surely that would reduce the need for some extent for him to be back in those areas of the pitch.
Yep, and yes, you've made the point I should have made. You've cleared up for me there, as people were having to do with Sanchez. Where I should have said, it wasn't just he was losing the ball; he was losing in those particularly dangerous positions. And to be honest, I think a City who was slightly more on form than they were yesterday may well have punished that a little more. But we got away with it. Let's not worry about that. Let's move on.
Can I just mention one thing?
Of course.
Which no one seems to have mentioned. But again, I'm not moaning about this in the sense of the game or the result or anything, just in a sense of footballness. For me, that tackle by Jesus Navas on Monreal is a red card.
Okay.
Is that just me? Have you seen this? I mean,
it was early. It was early on, wasn't it? That one, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Game shouldn't matter. That should be a red card.
No, I'm just trying to get it straight in my head. It's an interesting point, isn't it? Because also, I mean, there were some strong challenges. I mean, Xhaka obviously got booked, and Sky picked up on another tackle of his after that, which, even with my red tinted specs on, he could easily have seen a card or worse for that. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember that particular challenge quite well enough to give a definitive comment on it. But I thought the referee generally did okay, but I think he was perhaps a little. There was a little more latitude than perhaps there might have been. Shall I put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say I'm not trying to argue that this. I mean, Coquelin should have been sent off for a second yellow, quite plainly. You can't go bundling someone into the floor, but De Bruyne into the floor when he's. I mean, that was cynical. He was already. He should have gone. So I'm not arguing it. It's just that I really don't like tackles like that. It was over the ball, nowhere near the ball, knee height, studs up into someone's knee. We should be trying to remove those sorts of tackles from the game.
Yeah, and we've obviously seen something recently similar with the Wales-Ireland game. With Taylor on Coleman, if I'm getting the names right. And there was stuff talked about at the time where you just say, look, you ban people for a month or 2 months or whatever it is, and it will go. There's no need for that kind of. And as Arsenal fans, we don't need to hear the conversation again about not that kind of player, because that's been done. We've heard enough of that. The point being that once they do that, then they are that kind of player. And if you go in like that, you're in real danger of damaging a professional. You end up with that hanging over you. Maybe you don't care, but I like to think most people do. And if they found themselves in that position, and I think they said the Wales guy felt terrible afterwards. Well, don't do it then.
Don't do it. Do not do it.
Don't put yourself in that position. But all right. Well, I can't quite remember it in detail, to be honest. So I will not comment. But it's a good point. I'll mention two other things very quickly. The Walcott sulk when he came off. I didn't really see it myself, and they were showing him on the camera. It looked like he was a bit peeved about it, but I'm not sure a sulk was quite necessarily the way I would have described it, but there we go. And also there was, of course, we should mention it in the interest of balance, not that we need to be balanced, but the alleged Monreal handball right at the very end of the game. Now, I saw the replay and I just didn't see anything there. You're at that end of the ground. Was there any heart-in-mouth moment there?
No, not really. No, I couldn't see it even touched his hand. His hand was in a position where it might have touched the ball, but if the ball had been in a different place. But
yeah, he lost his balance, didn't he? Which never makes it look particularly good when that happens. But okay, well let's move on. I will just end by saying I thought it was an odd game. but that doesn't necessarily mean a bad one. It had lots of moments of interest. By the end of it, I was sort of happy to think, well, it looked like a draw, to be honest. So a draw is a fair result. All right, we don't always want fair results. We want hugely biased Arsenal results, but it didn't happen. So not much we can do about that.
Yeah, good put.
Before we move on to a couple of very quick previews, we haven't mentioned manager talk because over the 2 weeks that we've been away, there's been nothing concrete. There's been chat here and there. There was a brief moment of excitement about Sanchez saying he wanted to stay in London, but when he was off doing his international duty. But then the suggestion was that was just a slight mistranslation, and he had no problem seeing his contract out. So I don't think it's worth discussing that because we don't really know what that means, if anything. But there was something worth noting that Sky were sort of going quite big on just as the game was starting, or just before it started, about even Gazidis' chat with a supporters group before the game, the morning of the game, if I'm not mistaken. And this suggestion that I don't have it in front of me, but the suggestion that he'd said, that they were aware that changes need to be made and will see those changes be made, but with absolutely no commitment to anything concrete. So I'm mentioning it. I don't even know if it's anything worth discussing. Anything you'd like to add, Pete?
No, I mean, I assume that's tied into this rumour that we are going to potentially bring back an ex-player to be some form of sporting director, which is presumably, if they're potentially what they're waiting for to announce that Arsene is staying, which I still think will happen. I think he is going to stay for another couple of years, and I suspect what they will do is to soften the blow for those who don't like that idea, is say we're bringing in a sporting director and it will be one of your favourite ex-players.
Yes, there has been that chat. We won't name names yet, but things may move on over the next couple of weeks. I mean, I think, whilst I've said before, I prefer it if he went. I think if he stays, but there is a commitment to changing the way things are done, or at least to look to the future, or something looks to have done, then I think I don't want to judge, but I think I'm probably like a lot of players, a lot of people, a lot of fans. They might perhaps slightly grudgingly accept that. I think if things stay exactly the same, I think is where people would have real problems. So I think if this is the first step to saying we're aware of things and we're going to change them, but we're not going to rush into it, that would be a very Arsenal way of doing things. So I think that might find some acceptance of varying degrees of reluctance. But it will be interesting. We'll obviously keep an eye on that and see if anything happens over the next few weeks. We're in April already, so you'd hope something was going to be sort of known before the end of the season, ideally. But we'll have to wait and see because we just have no idea really. We're just guessing.
We are, but I think that it does seem likely that they will want to. They will want to. However few or many people there are who want to see the back of Arsene, I think they will, before they announce his staying, want to find some way to demonstrate to those people that they are listening to their concerns and trying to do something about the club going forward.
I think it's taken a while, but I think they perhaps have got to this idea of we can't just pretend nothing's happening. So even if the statement wasn't really of any great depth or concreteness, if you can excuse the unpleasant language or the ugly language, then let's leave it there and we'll see what happens. But obviously wheels seem to be turning one way or another, and I tend to agree with you. I think we are looking now at the manager staying, but I'm curious now as to what the rest of everything is going to look like, and we will find out before too long, hopefully. Right, let's move on quickly then. Arsenal play West Ham on Wednesday night. It's not on the telly anywhere, but there may be ways of watching it. I won't go into any more details. You will have a way of watching it because you're going to be there. West Ham 14th in the league, but they've lost 4 in a row in the league.
Yes, the form is worse than ours.
Yes, so given that I'm assuming we're not going to have that many players back. If they were injured on Sunday, I'm assuming they'll still probably be injured on Wednesday. Any hopes for this? I mean, 3 points obviously is a starting point for any Arsenal home game, particularly against a team with that kind of form.
Yes, let's. I think we have to. We've got to win this, haven't we? They are on a dire run of form, and although they they do still have something to worry about, don't they? So they won't not care, but they're really not up to much, are they, West Ham? And sorry, West Ham fans. And we really need to be beating them at home at this point in time. And as I say, hopefully a bit of confidence and determination that we've got out of that Man City game will go into another game. Fortunately, which I think is quite nearby. We're not having to wait a week. We're straight into another one, which is another very winnable game, and we should go out there probably very similar team, and you would hope we would do the business.
You would hope. Let's keep our fingers crossed for that. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I think we should be all right here. West Ham 6 points away from relegation at the moment. With only 8 games left for them, you'd think that was a reasonably decent position for them. But yeah, they lose to us, they lose another game or two, then obviously they'll be in trouble. So I don't know how much they're going to go for it, but we'll see. But we need to take the initiative in these kind of games. The players are playing for their future. I think that sounds slightly dramatic, but if changes are going to be made, I think a lot of the people who we have on the books now are not necessarily going to be there next year. So if maybe they don't care, but if they do care, then they're going to have to start looking the part, should we say? Sorry, that was slightly stronger than I meant it to sound, but I think sooner or later things are going to change, so they might as well get used to the idea. Right.
No, I think it's fair enough. I mean, I think that the players have underperformed, haven't they? And it's the part of our problem so far this season has been so much focus on the manager, and I know people will say, well, it's the manager's fault the players aren't performing, but no, actually, I think a lot of the players have let themselves down badly. And it's not as if they're not playing for the manager; it's something else, and I think it's something they can only fix themselves.
Yep, good point. Well, they'll have another chance to do that the following Monday. Now, because we normally do this on a Monday, we'll do a pod either immediately after the Palace game or perhaps on the Tuesday or something, but the point is we're not going to do it before the Palace game. So interestingly, well, if you like this kind of thing, Palace is 16th in the league, so 2 places lower than West Ham, but they are on a 4-game winning streak in the Premier League, including, of course, the 2-1 win at Chelsea on Saturday. This may be a trickier game.
It may well be. Yes, you would think that they will pose a much greater threat than West Ham will, and but again, these are the sort of games that we need. I think, other than the hating Monday night football, it may be good that it's after everyone else has played. I mean, certainly with Palace, the pressure is off them, isn't there? They have nothing to hugely play for.
Well, they're still. I mean, they're below West Ham in terms of relegation. So on that basis, you'd say they're only sort of 4 points away from it, but their trajectory is obviously completely different. So they've still got stuff they need to play for. A couple of defeats and they'll be back in trouble again. But the impetus is completely with them. Yes,
very true. So we had better be very careful then. But again, it's a game that we should be beating Crystal Palace at this stage of the season.
Yes, I think that's fair enough.
And I would be hoping for 6 points come the end of that game, the next time we speak.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, there's a good point to start tidying things up. Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there for now. So we'll be back in a week or so. We don't know exactly when, whether it'll be the Monday night or the Tuesday, but we'll sort something out. We'll chat about the West Ham and Palace games. Hopefully 2 sets of 3 points, but we'll see about that. And then we'll preview Borough, which is another Monday night game, unfortunately. But because I'm not a massive fan either, and again, you have to do your work after everyone else has already done theirs. So not fun, but there we go. Can't argue about it. That's where we are. Well, we'll leave it there then. Thank you for listening.
I noticed that we don't actually have another home weekend fixture until May.
That's true. It's the 7th of May we play United at home, but before that we do have one home game against Leicester, but that's midweek. So yeah, it's there's only 3 home games left: Leicester, United, and then Everton on the 21st.
And I'm really not sure why television want to show us so much.
it's the the Europa League race or something. Oh dear, we're gonna have to comment on that next year, aren't we? Although if we lose a couple more games, we'll make sure we're out of that completely, and then you end up like Chelsea.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way to go. I think that's the positive spin we're going to have to put on things, Matt. If we knock up 6 points from these next 2 games.
Well, yeah, let's see where we are in
7th place.
Yeah, we'll see where we are in a week's time, and then we can adjust appropriately. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks, an interesting summer as well, possibly. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about that between now and then. So for the moment, Pete, thank you very much for your company.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's a pleasure.
And thank you very much for listening, everyone. And we will be back next week. Take care. Bye bye.